Hey guys, it's Nate. I'm with Narada Real Estate Investments. I'm super excited today. I've got Aaron Chapman here. He's our top lender here that our clients work with. And we're going to cover some topics today: the fear of rising interest rates, the fear of this interesting market that's happening. We'll go through an example deal. We're going to talk about really just the power of leverage. So, without further ado, I'm happy to bring Aaron Chapman on board here, who's closed, I believe, over 1,300 loans just in the past year in the rental markets. Well, again, thank you for taking the time. I know you're super busy. So
I appreciate the chance for us to chat and do this because people need to know. They're just not aware of what's going on out there. And they're so wrapped up in the old thought process that don't really realize where we should be and what the how you really should be looking at real estate. And that's the unfortunate thing of it. And as a result of that, I've been on this tear for years. The problem is nobody heard it because cash on cash return was still the king of things. And everything Aaron Chapman said that was outside of that made no sense. Well, now everybody's listening, but the problem is I got to reach them all, and it's just hard to reach them all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important for the conversation today. Like, I want to hit on profit centers in real estate, right? I think cash on cash return has been it's been such a focus, especially the last few years of low interest rates. And honestly, whoever's going to watch this, I mean, I think myself included, investors have been spoiled with low interest rates, right? Yeah. You talk to guys who invested 25 years ago or in the 80s when interest rates, my parents bought their first house for $35,000 at like 16%, right? If you're buying rental properties back then, you're breaking even most of the time. It was a retirement plan.
It wasn't even about the cash flow.
No.
The eventual cash flow from raising rents, but then having the amortization of the loan.
Yep.
And the tax benefits and the appreciation is going to happen down the road. So it was a way, it's a way to invest in inflation.
Yes.
It boils down to either inflation is either going to beat your ass or you're going to find a way to invest in it where you're going to benefit from it, but it's not going to be tomorrow. Now, of course, the benefit with cash on cash return that we had for the longest time was we got a lot of people that are aware of real estate investing. So I'll give it that. The benefit that we had with the lower interest rates and the lower priced housing, at least from the 2013, I guess 2010 and 11, was when people started to come into the markets. Then from there on up, that's what it became sexy. Yeah. So everybody's aware of it. Well, now everybody is so aware of it that now they're asking, where are these cash on cash returns? Well, we don't have it, but here's how you really invest in real estate. And the light bulb's starting to come on. What's really cool is the light bulb's coming on with the younger generation. They're picking where our parents left off, right? So we're having to teach them what our parents knew, but we had to learn on our own because we learned from a completely different thought process.
Agreed. And it's funny you bring up 2011 and on. It's funny how people talk about the 1% rule now, like every property is supposed to be there, right? It's just non-existent in most markets now, and so, people see these high interest rates going up and then they see, price to rent ratios that are, not as sexy as they were back in 2011, 2012, 2013, as price points have come up. And you bring up a good point about teaching real estate differently now. It is normal to have 0.6, 0.7, 0.8% price rent ratios. And if you have a high interest rate, even if you're breaking even, in my opinion, it's still a good investment. Would you agree that, let's say we spent $35,000 on $150,000 purchase, 25% down, it's $37,500, right? Even if we break even on that asset for a few years until rents go up, what's your take on the investment? Is it still a good hold, or would you say, no, don't invest?
If you break even, that is a badass investment. Let me explain why. When I'm talking about break even, you're talking about breaking even on what your monthly expenses are versus what your rent is, right?
Correct.
So let's talk about that for a quick second. I'm going to use more round numbers because it's been a long ass day.
It's fair.
I've been in 2 different airports today, and I'm about 3 brain cells from a talking monkey. So we're going to go, and guys, forgive me, we're going for the $100,000 as your purchase price for the sake of numbers. Yeah. It's not what you're going to find. You may find one out there. I'm not saying you won't. So $100,000 purchase price, 20% down. We're going to say a $1,000 a month rent. Again, we're using 100,000. So we can get away with the 1% rent valuation of the scenario. And we're going to say a 5% increase in your rent every year, because we know it's going higher than that in most markets. So if you're breaking even on that thing and you're not making any money, you're charging $1,000 a month, but you're not making a single cent on that, and you put 20% down on that, well, that means who's paying off the loan? You have what size of a loan, Nate? You put 20% down. What size is the loan?
80,000.
80,000. So who's paying it off?
The renter.
The tenant. The tenant's paying off the 80 grand for you. So
Yeah.
you put 20% down, which is 20,000. Let's say you had 6,000 in costs. So let's say it's 26,000 that left your pocket at closing.
Yeah.
So, and that's just round numbers, guys. I'm not quoting exacts, round numbers for the sake of math. So 26,000 you invested, 80,000 come from the lender, 10 is paying off the lender. Well, take 80,000 and divide it by 30 for me real quick.
I've got my calculator right now, guys, just so you know.
And you
So
guys
80,000.
make sure the son bitch is doing the right math.
80,000 divided by 30. You said divide by 30,000?
Yep. But divide by 30. Just 30.
By 30, right. 80,000 divided by 30. 2,666.
So $2,666.67. So what that means is averaged over 30 years is your tenant is paying it down by $2,666.67 every year. Yeah. Well, what you do then is you divide that into your 26,000 because that was your investment. It means your investment is growing by 10.25% every single year. That is the baseline of your deal. You're literally outperforming the NASDAQ just by paying off the loan. Your tenant pays it off. Now, what comes along with that pay off the loan is interest, right? Tenant's paying the interest at the same time. You get to write that off on your taxes. That's a little bit that you get to keep of your income that you're not giving to the government. What else do you get to write off on your taxes? You get to depreciate the property for 27.5 years.
Yep.
That goes on your tax. You get to keep that a little bit more of your income. So you get to add that on top of what could be like 3, 4, 5%. You could be sitting right now at 13%. That's just on that. Now we're talking about rent raises. Now we're talking about you're not making any money, zero cash flow on this for the first year, but you get a 5% increase in your rent. We're renting it for $1,000 a month. So what's 5% of 1,000?
5% of 1,000. $50.
$50. So you now get $50 a month cash flow. Now your taxes insurance could change, but that is, how do you calculate that you went from zero income to $50 a month? That's an incalculable income, right? It's not like you're making $1 and I getting 50%. Now it's a 5,000% return, right?
Yeah.
$50. It's literally, it's just big incalculable. Now you get $50 a month cash flow. The next year you raise it 5%. Again, you get another $50. You've got now 100% increase in your cash flow. Now you're at $100 a month cash flow year 3. Now you get another $50. Now you're at a 50% increase in your cash flow. You see what I'm talking about here? By year 5, you get this compound increase in your cash flow.
That's it.
That it's this long game. Now, where it really gets sexy, right? We're raising rents because of inflation, correct? That's why they go up?
Yep.
Does the lender get to raise the payment on the loan because of inflation?
Of course not.
No, it stays exactly the same. What's the dollar's value doing with inflation right now?
Devaluing
at a rapid pace, right? They're going to claim it's at 6%. It's actually like 14. Let's just use 8 as an average because it's been 8 on the average for a very long time.
Just so I'm clear, we're averaging 8% inflation right now, even though we know it's higher. For our example, we're saying 8% inflation.
8% because we're going to average it over a long period of time. So we're saying 8% inflation.
Yeah.
So that means the value of the dollar drops, or at least the buying power drops by 0.666% every single month.
Yeah.
So every time you made a payment to the lender with the tenant's money, you're giving them less money. So when you recalculate over 30 years, you may pay somewhere right around $190,000+ in principal and interest on an $80,000 loan at today's rates. But the value of those dollars that you gave back to the lender is worth about $76,000 to $77,000. You paid less than what you borrowed.
That is fascinating. So just to recap, we've covered, let's think about this. Well, tax benefits, depreciation of the asset, interest write-offs. You can write off maintenance too, by the way. We've covered principal pay down or equity accrual. You talked about that, right? The 2,666 divided by our initial investment.
Correct.
We've talked about increase in rents, 5% annually, and based on the marketplace, give or take, less or more. And we've talked about the value of keeping the exact same borrowed money at a fixed interest rate over a 30-year period. And as your tenant pays down that mortgage, right? At the end of the day, you're going to be paying less than what you initially borrowed for, correct?
Exactly. You're paying literally like $3,000 to $4,000 less than what you actually borrowed. and you raised your income during the process because that same inflation that deflated what you were giving back to the lender, you got to, it was what caused you to be able to raise rents to increase the income that you were receiving from your tenant. So as you're increasing your income, the lender's receiving a decrease in the revenue that they get. So
interesting.
when you start adding all this up, it gets sexy. Now, you don't have to take my word for it, right? What I do is I created an app for you. So you as the borrower, you don't have to, you can actually go to your app store and look up the QJO investment tool. You type that in, QJO investment tool will be the second.
I have it on my phone.
It'll be the second thing that you find. The first thing's a paid ad, I don't pay ads for it. You go to the second one. It's called it stands for the Quit Jerking Off Investment Tool. Yeah. And the reason I called it that, because everybody that keeps just searching for interest rate, is all you're doing is jerking off of things for no value, because rates don't matter. They really do not. They never have. They're just a number in the deal. So then you get that calculator, and that calculator will literally show you how the time value of money works. You do the amortization on your property. Then you can also scroll it forward 50 years and see what you actually paid. Now, once you get that, reach out to me. When you download that, upper right-hand corner, there's a question mark. Click on that. They'll take you right to my website. Say, hey, show me how to use this. I'll send you the email with all the videos, and then you can watch it for yourself, and I'll show you exactly how to use it. It's not just that calculator. I gave you 3 other calculators that lenders use for reserves and for, what was the other one? There's a reserve. Oh, for being able to calculate out your Schedule C and see what the government sees and what lender sees. It's 2 different things. What the government sees as a negative income, and what the lender shows as a negative income is 2 different things. Never released to the public before. I gave these to you.
Interesting. Yeah, fascinating. And so all these tools obviously can support and help anybody, right? Mm-hmm. That's using a leveraged approach to buy a piece of real estate. So
anything, even your primary residence, and I'll tell people, don't pay it off. Never pay it off early. And also don't refinance it unless you're pulling cash out. There's a reason why. If you look on the average, and I'll ask you if you know what the average is, how often do people refinance their homes?
Oh my gosh. I don't know this answer, but I would guess it's in a course of like the home ownership. Or are you talking in the course of like a tech? And I would say at least 3-4 times.
Yeah. So about every 4 to 5 years is how
that
happens. And do you know why they do that?
Well, maybe to play the interest rate game, but also probably to pull equity out and use that cash for something. That would be my guess.
It's because of marketing.
Marketing, okay.
The banking industry is very, very good at marketing people, telling them when they should refinance. So let's talk about an amortization table. Say you own a house for 30, you've got a 30-year loan. What's the first years look like on that amortization table?
Mostly interest payments.
Almost all interest. Yeah. So I had a client of mine come to me, had a $120,000 loan. He'd been paying on it for 4 years. He paid just under $37,000 in principal and interest over that 4-year period, 48 months. Okay. So, 36 and change. The balance hadn't even dropped by $7,000. It was like 6,300. The balance had dropped by. Paid 37,000, dropped it by like 6,200.
The principal balance is what you're saying.
Like 31 grand in interest.
Yeah, crazy.
And he wanted to refinance, and he didn't want to cash out. I'm like, dude, I don't recommend you do this. I couldn't convince him. As good as I am at talking shit, I could not convince him. He still closed on it. So then he had closing costs. Where do you think he put the closing costs on this deal?
Probably rolled it back into
rolled it exactly loan. Right on top of the loan. Your dead on balls accurate there. He went from dropping his mortgage like just a little over $6,000 from where he started, or within $6,000, to putting it all back. He was within $102 of where he started, and then did the new loan. So he starts over at interest again at the exact same place he started 4 years before. So if he does this every 4 to 5 years for 20 years, he will have spent $180,000 and never moved the needle. But if there's a guy that closed at the exact same, he took the higher interest rate, closed at the same time, same house, same floor plan, same price, same everything. If he did opposite and just stayed in it, he'd have been 2/3 paid off. You see why? And not only 2/3 paid off, but paying it back with a diminishing instrument like the US dollar. He'd be way ahead. The other guy's way behind. So that's why when I talk to people, I was like, this whole game of refinance, it's the marketing engine of the mortgage industry, really controlling you and putting you as their cash cow. Humans are the apex predator. We fall prey to no other species except other humans. People in my industry are hardcore predators that preach refi, 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 refi. because they're putting you in a position to pay them continuously for the rest of your existence. You are a slave. You are literally a monetary slave to people in that if you listen to that crap.
What would you say then to someone? So if I have a client that comes to me, I had a couple of clients today, actually. I have a guy that's has maybe 3 or 4 homes. He's considering refining out the rental properties. He's considering refining out of them, taking that cash and reinvesting. Now, if someone's doing a refi for an investment purpose, right? What would you say to somebody in that sense, right? Not necessarily a primary, but an investment purchase.
I'm all about it if you're doing it to pull the money out, even if it's your primary and pulling money out to invest it, as long as you're using it to increase your holdings. Because think about this. Is it your money anymore?
No.
No, you're taking somebody else's money. You're buying an asset for you that somebody else pays off.
Yep.
Now, when it's your primary residence and you pull the cash out just to buy boats and bullshit, that's a whole different story, right? Because you're the one that has to pay that off. But if you're doing it where other people pay it off, and eventually with the cash flows, they're paying off your house. And when you think about that, you're paying off somebody else's money, right? And then you're paying it back with a diminishing instrument like the US dollar, and you stretch it out over 30 years, you're literally winning on so many fronts. Cash out always makes sense if you know what you're doing with the cash out. But if you're doing it to piss it away and things that just goes, it just vaporizes, you're setting yourself up to have to pay for something unnecessarily. But always, and what really is really sexy about pulling it out of cash, out of other real estate, and putting it to work and having tenants paying it off and all that kind of stuff, when you get down to calculating a cash on cash return, any money that comes into your pocket is infinite return because none of it was your money. You may have put the original 26,000 down, but every time you pull money back out, that wasn't your money, right? So your 26,000 gets to be diminished further and further and further every time you pull cash out and put it to work in the market. And now you start seeing these infinite returns that are incalculable because you're not the one who's responsible for the money. It was never your money to begin with.
Yeah, you bring up such a powerful point. I try to bring this up on some of my calls with clients that you are not paying this mortgage payment, right? So if you're nervous or the fear in the market of the interest rates going up, I'm like, it's not coming out of your pocket, right? Your renter and your tenant is paying that for you. It was like back in the day. Remember when non-recourse became big and for self-directed IRAs and solo 401ks? When I first started this industry, non-recourse loans were 12% interest for 12-year terms.
At 50% LTV.
Exactly. 50% LTV. And I can't tell you how many clients that have used self-directed IRAs and solo 401ks 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago are so happy they did, just to use the loan product to acquire more assets and then accelerate loan pay downs. And we can get into that. But I bring that up to, again, stress the point that there's this fear in the market right now about raising interest rates. And people say, what should I buy right now? I always tell them I'm biased. Yes, right? There's not a perfect time to buy real estate, right?
Well, interest rates might go up. Actually, a perfect time to buy real estate. It's right freaking now. And
right now,
I say it that way. Here's the reason I say it that way. So when people are trying to time the market, I say it's a lot like being a star football player, sitting on the sidelines, saving your energy for the perfect play to be on the highlight reel.
Yeah,
you're never going to be able to get on a highlight reel unless your ass is on the field. So you need to be out there working. So what you've got to do is you got to set your baselines and decide, okay, what makes a deal and what doesn't. And then when you see a deal that makes a deal, you move forward. Now, what I tell everybody, you're the CEO of your real estate investment business. You got Nate right here is your chief operations officer. He's going to guide you to the markets that make sense, introduce the people in those markets that will source, acquire, rehab, manage, and maintain your business. That right there is your operations division. Your job is to pick the business, which is the property, that will stay reasonably rented for the entire time you own it, and you raise rents. That's it. You do that, you accomplish everything we just talked about, and you won. Hundreds of % return. If you can't do that, you just don't buy it. That's it. Now, you're buying these C properties or these D properties because they cash flow better. All you're doing is saving your cash flow to put back into the piece of shit to make it habitable again the next time it changes hands. Don't do that crap. Use a guy like Nate to take you to place, to get the right place, because you get the right properties, the right businesses, because like you said, he's biased. He understands it.
Yeah. Yep. I love it, man. I think we've hit on some great topics. Obviously, I had some notes here, talked about the power of leverage. We talked about kind of that fear mindset and kind of squashed a little bit about that. We've talked about, the deal that we went through. I think that was a great option with the 100K deal. Talked about multiple profit centers, and we're in another market cycle, right? I mean, how many market cycles have you been through? You've probably
I've been in
seen
this. I've been in since
three.
1997, right? And this
Yeah.
brings us to another point. There's this old saying: "Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment." It's a great way to learn on the grade school playground, but not a good way to learn in real estate, guys. You got to get with people who understand and have been there a very long time.
Yeah.
You've been in it for a long time. You've been in different places. And it's not just years. It's the exposure of deals, right?
Yeah.
Your deal exposure is huge because of the pedigree that you have. My deal exposure, I've been working with investors since 2003. These last few years, I've done over 1,300 transactions a year. I get to see where a lot of people make decisions, where a lot of people are mistakes, where a lot of people are failing, where they are actually succeeding. You don't have to know all how to do everything. When you face a question you've never faced before, a decision you never had to make before, you reach out to us and we'll give you stories where other people did things and what the outcome was. I'll never tell you what to do, but I'll tell you how it worked for other people, and you make the decision with practical data, not speculation and theory.
Yeah. Love it, man. Love it. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the chance to shoot the shit with you, man. This is definitely valuable, for me and you, and for everybody out there to know how we think and what we're doing. If you guys don't succeed, then we don't succeed. It does. There's this old saying. This is going to sound kind of macabre, but you can shear a sheep many times, but skin them only once. When you've got a guy out there that just wants you to close so they can make money, that's what they're doing. They're skinning you out, and you're never going to go back to that guy. When you're shearing sheep, it benefits them because it's at a time of year that they need to be sheared down. They don't need to be wearing the heavy coat. We're here to help you to be prepared for the next cycle where your coat's going to grow and you do the next thing and the next thing and next thing. We're going to. That's our whole goal. If you're not closing 10 transactions by working with us, we're not doing our job right.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it, man.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate
your
time. Sorry for the delay on getting on here because of my travel here.
No worries, dude. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time. I mean, it's freaking dope that you are open to taking 30 minutes with me here and, while you're traveling. So I appreciate it, dude. And I think we've covered some great topics.